Welcome peeps to D-Mop Garage. We're working back on the single cab 54 barn door. Let's have a look. In the last episode we were playing around with the front end and just grafting bits and pieces on with the Clecos, and we're going to continue today getting the headlight buckets, which I think I have them over here. We need to clean off. There's one bucket and number 2 bucket. So we've got to get the green paint off those and get those welded into the front nose. And then we've got to continue just doing some repairs to that inner breast section, and then we can go from there. So let's get cracky lacking. Okay, so we have a little bit of primer in the rings, and we've also sandblasted these guys and also just put a little bit of primer around where they're going to sit. Now these guys go in like that. Try and do this one-handed. And you need to leave a room for the little rubber gasket seal that's going to run against that lip and here. Don't go pushing them all the way in flush, which I have done before and found out the hard way later on that I couldn't get seals on. So that was in a very early bust that I did. So yeah, you've got to make sure you've got that gap in 3mm gap in order for the seal to fit. So let's pop this one in here as well. Okay, we'll go and knock those into position and have a look at them. One fell out. That's about right. Move on to this one. You can see there about that sort of a gap, 2 to 3mm. Beautiful. So before I weld that in, I will put the rubber seal in there and just make sure it is perfect, but that's about the right gap. I need to order a couple of seals, so I haven't got them in stock. Good. All right, we can move on. Okay, so she's gone backwards again, but that's okay. We're going to get the floor off now and get rid of all that green paint, and then we can get it into primer. I think we're getting close to having to prime some of the front here, because once the floor gets welded on, we're not going to have good access. So yeah, we're going to potentially have to punch out the spray gun very soon. So anyway, let's get this floor up. We can put it out there on the bench and get some paint stripper on it and get it stripped off. Righto guys, so we have the floor stripped of the hideous green paint. Now I've just kind of placed it in position because we're going to have to start drilling some holes to do the plug welding to put it down, and I discovered a problem straight off the bat. Now luckily I kept the old piece here because I'm going to have to refabricate these sections here because they're so bad. But what I discovered, if you have a look here, this little elongated hole is actually pointing in that angle, and this one, which is off this ute, is pointing in that direction. So I've got a feeling they've gone and done the pressing for this, and this is probably a left-hand drive version, and something's gone haywire. So we're going to have to cut this out and flip it so that it's pointing in that direction, because the ducting that goes underneath, the hole's over here, it's not over there. So, and obviously we're going to have all the steering linkages over in that side, being a right-hand drive. So someone at Gerson has stuffed up and put it on the wrong side. So anyway, no big deal. We'll just chop it, flip it over, weld it back in again. Also, you know, this pressing here, you can see the difference between that pressing and the factory pressing. So it looks a bit dodgy to me. I don't know. They don't seem to have, I think, is there bolts? No, they're just self-tappers. So the original one was, I mean, look, I could cut that out and graft it into here, but yeah, I probably won't. I think that's once you have your unit on top of it, you're not going to tell. So we also had to cut a couple of holes. We've got one here and we've got one here. That'll be for the cable or the wiring loom that's running underneath. This one's going to be for the high beam switch, I think. Anyway, let's chop that out and flip her over. So there you go. We've just got our little piece. It was like that, and now we're going to flip it like that. Pop it back in again and call it good. Okay, one more mod done, let's move on. So we have just been playing around with the front. I actually took it off, put it back on, took it off, and obviously just fitted the doors, and there are, you know, look, nothing's braced, so they're just, I just wanted to see what was going to go on. You can see that's obviously super tight right up, and I've just clamped it. So we're going to have to get the porta power or some form of pushing, pulling mechanism. Probably use the turnbuckles, and then we can get them sorted. So that one really just has to come forward, you know, 5-6 mil. This one's a little bit different because this is the door that came with it. You can see our swage line's way off, and we're actually high. So again, same sort of thing. We're just going to have to start pulling on the. I mean, like I said, these are just, they're just, you know, they're not braced or anything. So I'll probably do that next. Get some triangular braces going in here, and I do have the turnbuckles, which are these guys. So we're going to use these, and I'll just weld those onto some RHFs, and then we've got adjustments with them. So triangular, probably weld it from here down to that corner, or actually maybe what we might do is go from here up to that corner. We'll see. We've got to work something out here. Anyway, leave it with me and I'll bring you back in a second. Okay, gentlemen. Well, one thing you probably noticed is I have a new wireless microphone. And I've had this for about a year, but it wouldn't pair up with the GoPro 10, so I had to buy a media mod system. And anyway, she's all working, so we've got way better sound now, so you guys can hear my silly voice. Anyway, back to this thing. You can see I've put a little bit of cross bracing across it and some turnbuckles just to do some fine adjustments. And so far we're looking pretty good. This door here, being that it's a brand new door, you can see we've got our swage line lined up. We've got a nice, you know, 3 mil gap down there, and everything's kind of just clamped together for now. I did have the dog leg on there and that fit perfect as well. So I'm happy with that. Now, again, remember, all this is just Clecoed together at the front end. So we can't really go forward until I weld the floor in, because the floor needs, you can see here, I've actually gone and punched all the holes for the plug welds, but the floor needs to be welded in before we can then, you know, start welding the rest of it. So we're going to have to strip this all back so that we can get in here. We're going to have to do some primer work in here because obviously we're not going to be able to get to it once the floor's welded on. And once that's done, then we can start, I would say after that, yeah, look, it's a bit of a tricky one. Probably get the A-pillars sorted, then we can get this front outer valance, yeah, get that on, and then from there move on. Now the front's been Clecoed on many times already. This door here gave me a lot of trouble to get it right, and we're getting there slowly. I don't know whether the hinges might be bent, which is throwing everything out of whack, but I've got it better now. Our swage line is lining up, but it's very tight here, and of course because we got, you can see here, if I just do this, you can see, you can, you know, bend it across, make whatever gap you want, because everything here is flimsy whimsy, but we'll sort that out. I mean, that's not braced either, so yeah, a lot to think about. You know, you've got to sort of think 4 steps ahead and work out what's going to affect what, and if you weld something in, is that going to stop you from adjusting something? So yeah, you've got to work ahead to get this right. So at least we've got a bit of bracing to hold those A-pillars. So let's start disassembling this front again, and we're going to have to start cleaning up the floor section. Okay, fellas, well, what we need to do now, we have just put a little bit of primer epoxy in here, just because we're not going to get to a lot of those surfaces once we weld the floors in. So we are going to start with these 2 panels first, and you can see here I've got these prepared as well. This one lives like that. And there's a bit of a jigsaw puzzle after that, but basically the first two that have to go in is this one and that one, and we've got a whole lot of plug welds to do. Yep, might as well get that started and go from there. So let's fire up the welder. Got to make sure we get this in the right position. Then we've got a cross here, we'll clamp underneath that, and actually we need to flap these back because the rest of it won't sit flush, so let's get that done. Righto, onto this side here, and we'll do the same thing, use some clamps just to get our positioning right. Now with this one's a bit different because we actually have to set this one up at the same time. No, sorry, no, that one goes there. Right, now what has to happen, we need the other piece. I painted the wrong side, I'm a doofus. Okay, this one is also ready to go. Let's plug away. Right, next bit is going to be this centre section. All right, looking good. We will flap this one back and I'll bring you guys back in. So we have a little more progress again. I just went and clear-coated in the top frame and we've just been punching some holes in these side panels here because we'll get ready to weld those in at a later date. I just wanted to get the front in and make sure everything was good, and what we're going to do now is take it off and permanently weld this time our front valance. So this has got all our little plug holes because that's all good. The nose is resting on the valance on this little lip here, and we've got everything nice and square. Obviously this is now married with the clecos to the nose as well. So let's remove the nose and we can get this bottom part welded in. Now also for people that don't know what clecos are, it's an aviation thing. You can see here, it's like a rivet. The end of it actually explodes out and you can just drill a tiny hole, 1/8, and pop it in, and it actually locks your panel in position. So great little tool. Let's take this nose off. we will grind that back, put some primer on it, and call it good. Righto guys, so as you can see, that is completed. A little bit of primer on there to stop it flash rusting, and we can start to continue. So now that we've got the A-pillars welded in, we can move forward. I want to get these top struts, or these sections here, marrying the A and B pillar together. So we want to get those at least tacked or screwed in position. And then what we're going to do is rehang the doors, make sure the gaps are all good, and obviously hang the dog leg on this side as well. And once we're all happy with that, then we can get these welded in. We do have then the top gutters that have to go on, which there's a piece just in there. We can get those put on, and then we're going to have to start playing around with the roof and modifying this top part of the frame here. So I've started working on this side here, and one of the cons of of being on the table, the single cab's really high off the ground, so I need a step ladder to work on it now, because we are obviously high off the ground. Now what I've done up here is just got this section here worked out roughly where it's got to go, and I can just go and put a couple of tacks in now, and then we can bring this in so that we can marry those together. Then we'll hang the door, make sure it's all good. We've got this dog leg already screwed on, so we'll probably start on this side now. All right, let's go. Okay guys, so it's the next day. We've done a little bit more. You really can't tell progress, but I've spent hours just going around and checking gaps on the doors. You know, these gaps here, this gap along here, the gap, and especially this gap along the top here. That's really critical, because you want to make sure that that's not too tight and obviously not too big. And you can see up along here, I've put a Cleco just to hold this section, but we're nice and level. We've got a good gap. We've got a good gap. So this door is pretty good. Obviously, we've got a lot of new metal here. The other side, not so good. And we do have some issues with this side. Gap down here is good, and our dogleg gap is good. Our gap here is a little bit out, which is not a big deal. And I know this part here I need to work on the metal on this a bit, because it's actually, you can actually see it if you look careful. This has got a bit of a dip in it here, so I need to build this little section here out, which will get that back to being level. Now our line here is good, our line up here is good. This is a little bit thicker than the other side. Now here's the dilemma that I'm facing. I have put a straight edge from here over to the other side and put a level on it, and it's perfectly level. So I can't grab this now and drop it down to close this gap up. So that's set where it has to be. You can see here I've already tacked it, and we just have a slightly bigger gap. Now it could be a number of factors. I mean, we have brand new A-pillars, which means the hinge points are exactly the same on both sides, but we do have an old door. So I think the door's probably different to the brand new one, or it could be the frame itself might be a little bit out. But anyway, we're not talking huge amounts. I'm probably getting a little bit, you know, a bit OCD, but you can see there, and look, even if I grab the door, yeah, see there's a bit of play in that still. Yeah, you can see that. Might not be too bad actually. If I put that to there, yeah, our swage line is right on the money there. You know what? I think that's pretty good. Yeah, so we just got a little bit of a sink going on, and that'll probably be, let's see where's that slop coming from. Yeah, okay. So what we've got here is we've got movement in the A-pillar, obviously, because nothing's welded. I mean, I've got some bracing here, so yeah, I reckon we'll probably just move on from that. I think that'll be good enough. Once this gets welded up at the front, that'll stiffen this up. These hinges haven't got any slop in them, so we're okay. I think if I was to put that there where it's got to go, I think that gap is about the same as the other side. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, it is. Okay. All right. Crisis over with that one. Now, 2 more things we have to do. And again, I'm not worried about that yet, is we have to cut this out because this is incorrect for a barn door. We need, and you can see they've actually given you a little, a little mark there to cut it out. So that's got to get chopped out, and we need to put in on both sides, because this one isn't right. And I think I have talked about this before. This one is a later model, probably an early 60s or late 50s style. We need it to be the same as the Beetle over there. And you can see, if you look at that shape, it is totally different to this one over here. So the pressing, this has more of a point to it. So I have another old door that we're going to chop this out on outside, and I just need to make one more. We might even make a pressing, and I've inspired by Stan, of course, over at the Nova Scotia barn door build. I'm thinking what I'm going to do is get some carved bog filler or bondo and make a reverse mould and then use it as a die and press it on the press and see if we can get this stamping in, because I don't think I can just buy that piece. So we'll have a crack at doing that. I reckon that might be a good little experiment to see if we can actually press out. I don't think it'll be that hard to make that. So yeah, we'll see how we go. I think for now we've got everything tacked at the top. I've got a couple of screws in this one just up there holding it where it needs to go. But like I said, dog legs, same deal. They're just screwed at the moment. I think this is good. I think this is pretty good. Other modifications, the top gutter. Again, these sit on top like that. They sort of go something like this. Hang on. Like that. They sit like top. But of course, this has an overhang, and we can't have overhang being it's a barn door. So that's got to be modified. Top of the frame's got to be modified too. So a little bit more work there. Let's just move on and keep plodding along on this thing. Right, one of the next things we're doing now is getting these dog legs ready for welding. And I can show you just quickly. Here's the door getting closed. And then there is our nice little gap. We've just got to pull up the dog leg here up a little bit higher. And that's easy, but down over on that section, we're looking good. Now, what I've done is clecoed it in position, and then when I need to adjust it, I'm either just moving it in or out to make sure it's flush with the door, and then re-clecoing it again. So there's a few extra holes, but you know, they're all going to get plugged up with weld, so no big deal. So we're looking good. All we're going to do now is just shift. You can see I've made a couple of little marks here, and this just needs to come up a little bit higher, and then we're good to go. Because we have this tacked in and that tacked in, the doors, again, using all the hardware, making sure you use all the hardware because things flex and move and whatever, and we are pretty good. Like, gaps are nice all the way around. Pretty happy with the gaps. So yeah, we're just going to bring that up. You can see there, it just needs to come up ever so slightly. So we'll just quickly manipulate that, get it up a bit higher, and then we are good to go to weld this in. Okay guys, so this one is finito. Nicely welded in. We've got a little tiny patch to put in just there. So I'll do that just off camera, but you can see opening and shutting door. Look at that. Beautiful. So yeah, we've got a little bit of cleanup to do on that corner down there. But all in all, a good shutting door and the gaps are good. So next thing we've got to do is repeat the whole performance again on this side. I just worked on this a little bit better, so we're not too bad here on this gap. Same sort of thing as the other side, so yeah, we'll get that done. And then I think I've got to. This is irking me. I've got to clean this door up. The OCD is kicking in. All right, guys. Well, I think that'll do it for this episode, and yeah, let's continue. Thanks again for the new subscribers, and we will see you on another episode of The Single Cab.